As the clock ticks down to Tuesday's US presidential election, the candidates are using every remaining moment to rally their supporters across the nation. With polls showing signs of a tightening race in some of the crucial Rust Belt states, the Democratic nominee Joe Biden pulled out all the stops, enlisting his top surrogate Barack Obama for a campaign speech in Michigan. Meanwhile, the Republican incumbent Donald Trump is keeping up a punishing schedule. He spent Sunday crisscrossing the nation for campaign rallies in 5 battleground states. Despite consistently trailing his rival Joe Biden in national polls, Mr. Trump appeared not to be focused on undecided voters. Instead, he kept his message firmly aimed at firing up his base.
I'm not just running against Joe Biden. I'm running against the left-wing mob, the left-wing media, big tech giants. I'm running against the rhinos. They're probably the worst of all. And I'm running against the swamp. The swamp is very deep and very vicious. And they are not happy with the job we've done.
Biden also made a stop in Philadelphia, a key base of Democratic support in Pennsylvania, a state that helped Donald Trump reach the White House in 2016. At a drive-in rally, Biden hit out at Trump and said America would have a brighter future with someone else in the White House.
And yes, we choose truth over lies, the multiple lies he repeats. It's time to stand up. It's time to take back our democracy. We can do this. We're better than this. We're better than what we've been. We can be at our best. This is the United States of America.
Our reporter Colin Campbell is following the campaigns from Washington, D.C. He says the candidates are both focused on Pennsylvania after seeing the decisive role it played in the 2016 election.
Pennsylvania has 20 electoral votes. That's pretty large for considering that some of the states don't have as many. Maybe Florida has 29. Those are the really contentious states where they have swing voters there that could sway the outcome of the election. And I think that's what candidates are really focused in right now on, because of the fact that back in 2016, Hillary Clinton lost to then candidate Donald Trump by less than 2% of the vote. And that allowed him to go on to win the election. A lot of voters sitting on the edge of their seats that night, Tuesday night, 4 years ago, looking at the state of Pennsylvania. And both candidates know that there's a lot at stake here, and that's why they have been visiting Pennsylvania, reaching out to voters, thinking that they can sway the election to their advantage. Now, there are a lot of rural voters in Pennsylvania. President Trump reached out to those voters when he was campaigning back in 2016. A lot of voters who felt disaffected, who felt ignored, especially who they call the liberal elite. And I think that now former Vice President Joe Biden is trying to reach out to those voters, as well as voters in the conurbations around Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, to try to bring in a broader coalition of voters that could put it to his advantage.
Amidst that, Colin, there has been some violence in Pennsylvania, and other big cities, LA, New York, Washington, D.C., are preparing for rioting and violence on Tuesday. What's going on?
Yeah, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman faced some very caustic voters. And then in the state of Texas, a Biden rally had to be canceled because of armed voters, Trump supporters that were surrounding a caravan of Biden supporters. And so they felt that they were being threatened. They didn't feel safe. So they canceled that rally on behalf of the former vice president. And then around various cities across the country, they are preparing for what could be rioting and looting the night of the election, especially if it is not a decisive win for one candidate or another candidate. Here in Washington, D.C., we have businesses that are boarded up, bars, restaurants, salons, banks, all with wooden boards placed in front of their windows in case people throw bricks. Just a few days ago, there was a protest just a few blocks from here, just by a precinct where protesters were throwing bricks at police because of a killed rider of a moped, and they believe that this violence could continue into Election Day if there is not a clear winner in the election Tuesday night.
Thomas Gift is director of the Centre on US Politics at University College London. He says this year's presidential campaigns are more about emotion than policies.
Trump and Biden's final pitches have mostly revolved around broad themes about the future direction of the country rather than on specific policy proposals. So it's about what America signifies. For Biden, for example, it's about character in the White House, and he's framed the election very much as a fundamental battle about the soul of the United States. Trump has suggested that failing to reelect him would put the nation on a path to socialism, prompt social unrest, dismantle so-called traditional American values. So these are very much emotional appeals designed to underscore the vivid contrast between the two candidates.
Particularly in those really crucial swing states, which of those candidates' message, that emotional message you talked about, is resonating with those people?
Well, I think for each candidate, they are speaking in these final days to their base. And so when Biden is out there, he's speaking to his base. When Donald Trump is out there, he's speaking to his base. And I think there's good reason for that. It's because in the waning days of this election, there are only about 6% or so of voters who are still undecided. So most have already made up their minds. In fact, over 90 million Americans have already voted early. So the number of voters who are out there available to capture that are on the fence, that are undecided, are unsure about who they're going to vote for, they're very few and far between. And as a result, I think both candidates just want to ensure that their own supporters turn out to the polls, that they're mobilized, that they're motivated, and that nothing is going to keep them between them where they are and casting a ballot.
We so often look to the first 100 days in office as really defining what a president's priorities are going to be. In this election campaign, have either of these candidates actually really laid out what that would look like, what they'd prioritise in office?
Well, in some cases, yes, but generally I would say the answer to that is no. Both candidates have offered very few specifics on what their first 100 days of the new administration would look like. The final pitches are very much reflective instead of the general strategies that both candidates have taken for months. Biden wants to make this referendum on Trump's 4 years in the White House. Trump wants to be focused much more on just courting moderate voters. But what you really haven't seen is a lot of specifics. Instead, it's been mostly defining themselves in terms of what they are not rather than what they are for.